every morning in the suburbs of Milwaukee. As the first sunlight filters through the vibrant red maple leaves, I wake up to an unchanging routine. I, Robert, 62 years old, once a construction engineer with calloused hands and big dreams, am now retired. My life is now contained within a small two-story house where I live with Linda, my wife of over 3 decades. I brew coffee, its rich aroma filling the quiet kitchen, while Linda takes the watering can to the garden, tending to her vibrant yellow chrysanthemums. We talk, but it's as if we say nothing at all. The same familiar questions repeat like an old record. Do you want more sugar? Or, I'm watering the plants early today before it gets too sunny. I nod, she gives a faint smile, and that's it. We sleep in the same bed, the old mattress still holding the warmth of our breaths, but it's been a long time since I felt her hand reach for me in the dark. I remember the early days when we were young, when our gentle touches were like a wordless symphony, full of passion and life. Now, it's as though there's a glass wall between us, transparent, untouchable, but thick enough to separate everything. I don't understand. I love Linda, truly love her. I've never betrayed her, never shirked my responsibilities. I came home on time from work, mowed the backyard every weekend, fixed the leaky pipes. So why do I still feel lonely, even when she's less than an arm's length away? I stand by the kitchen window, a steaming coffee mug in my hands, the warmth from the white porcelain spreading through my cold fingers, a small comfort in the quiet morning. Through the misty glass, I watch Linda, my wife of over 30 years, bending down to pick up dry leaves scattered on the stone path leading to the garden. Her light green sweater, the one she's loved since the first winters we moved to Milwaukee's suburbs, flutters in the early breeze, its hem swaying like a small sail caught by the wind. Her silver hair, once the glossy brown curls I adored in our youth, now glints with white strands under the morning sun, like stars lost in a pale gray sky. She's still beautiful, in a way time cannot erase, not the radiant beauty of her 20s, but the beauty of resilience, of years etched into every line on her face. But her eyes are distant, as if gazing at an invisible horizon, a place I, no matter how hard I try, cannot reach. I wonder, in the faint steam rising from my coffee, what changed? Or rather, what did I do or fail to do to turn us from two people who couldn't bear to be apart into strangers living under the same roof? I remember the old days when Linda laughed heartily at my silly jokes, when she held my hand tightly during walks around Lake Michigan, when her eyes lit up every time I walked through the door after a day's work. Now, those eyes hold only a quiet emptiness, and I don't know how to bring her back. I want to break that invisible wall, the transparent but dense glass that's grown between us, to find the Linda of our early years, the woman who was my entire world. But I don't know where to start. I've tried asking her a few times, clumsy questions spilling from a confused heart. Are you okay, Linda? Or do you need anything? But she just tilts her head, her lips curving into that familiar faint smile, and says, I'm fine, Robert. Her voice soft but without warmth. I know she's not fine. I see it in the way she quietly folds napkins every evening, in the way she stares out the window without really seeing anything. And I'm not fine either, though I pretend everything is normal. Some nights, I lie awake on our old double bed, the mattress sagging under our combined weight, listening to Linda's steady breathing in the dark. That sound used to lull me to sleep, a reminder that I wasn't alone. But now, it only makes me feel more distant, as if each of her breaths is a gap I cannot fill. I tell myself it's just a phase, that love after 30 years of marriage naturally fades, like the peeling paint on the garage door I promised to repaint last summer but never did. But deep down, I don't believe that excuse. I still love Linda, love her so much that my heart aches when I think of the days she used to look at me like I was all she needed. I still want to see the radiant smile that made my heart race when I was 25, when we stood in the rain and kissed without an umbrella, when everything between us was simple and alive. I want to ask her to understand what's happening in her soul, but every time I try to speak, I fall silent. An invisible fear holds me back. fear that her answer will be something I can't fix, fear that she'll say something to shatter the fragile wall still standing between us. So I stand there, clutching a cooling coffee mug, staring out the window, letting the day pass in my own suffocating silence, like a man lost in the home that was once our sanctuary. But that morning, as I prepared to step out the door, pulling on a thick coat and a bit of resolve to catch the bus to visit my grandson downtown, I didn't expect that fate had arranged a chance encounter, one that would change everything, that would hand me the key I'd been searching for to unlock the door back to Linda, to the love I thought I'd lost. That morning, I stood at the bus stop on Prospect Avenue, my breath forming white clouds in Milwaukee's chilly air. The wind blew, carrying a few dry leaves swirling across the sidewalk, and I pulled my coat collar higher, hands tucked into pockets for warmth. The bus to my grandson's was still 15 minutes away, so I sat on an old wooden bench, watching the hurried passersby. That's when I heard the broom, a steady, rhythmic sound like the heartbeat of an ordinary day. I turned and saw her, a tiny old woman, perhaps nearly 90, sweeping leaves with a worn wooden broom. She wore a thick brown wool coat, her thin hands gripping the broom firmly, and her eyes, oh, those eyes, sparkled with a vitality I hadn't expected in someone so old. She glanced at me without hesitation and suddenly spoke, her voice raspy but warm. "You look like a man who sleeps next to his wife every night but still feels as lonely as if he were alone." I startled, as if someone had just ripped open my hidden thoughts. The coffee I'd brought from home nearly slipped from my hand, and I stammered, Can you read my mind?" She chuckled, a mischievous laugh that made the wrinkles on her face dance. She pulled a plastic chair closer, propped her broom against the bench, and sat beside me, her hands clasped as if ready to tell a long story. "I'm Margot," she said. "Been sweeping streets for 60 years. One look at a man, and I know where his heart's gone cold." I was stunned, unsure how to respond. Margot was unlike anyone I'd ever met, small as a dry leaf, yet radiating confidence and wisdom that held my gaze. I hadn't planned to confide in a stranger, but something in her voice, in the way she looked at me without judgment, made me blurt out, "You're right. I don't understand what's happening with my wife, with Linda. We live together, but I feel like there's a wall between us. I don't know how to break it." She nodded, unsurprised, as if she'd heard this story 100 times. She picked up a yellow leaf that had fallen on the bench, twirling it between her trembling fingers, and said, "Have you ever asked yourself why? It's not because she doesn't love you anymore." I looked at her, waiting, my heart caught between hope and doubt. She took a sip of tea from the thermos she carried, steam rising in the cold air, and continued, "I've seen hundreds of men like you, loving their wives, loyal, but still losing that closeness. They don't understand that love isn't something that burns on its own forever. It's like a campfire. You have to tend it every day, or it'll die out." Her words were like a beam of light piercing the fog in my mind. I wanted to ask more, to learn how to tend that fire, but the bus pulled up, its engine roaring and interrupting my thoughts. Before I stood, Margot looked me in the eye, her gaze sharp as if reading my soul. "If you want to know, come back here tomorrow. I'll tell you something most men never understand about women and about themselves." The next morning, I returned to the bus stop on Prospect Avenue, my heart full of anticipation tinged with unease. The wind was still cold, carrying the damp scent of earth after last night's rain, and the red and yellow maple leaves fell thicker on the sidewalk. Margot was already there, broom in hand, sweeping in steady arcs like a slow dance. She looked up as I approached, her bright eyes narrowing with a playful smile. "I knew you'd come back," she said, her raspy voice warm, gesturing for me to sit on the bench. She set her broom aside, pulled her thermos from an old cloth bag, poured some tea into the cap, and took a sip before starting. "I've seen hundreds of husbands," Margot said, her thin hands clasped together, "who think their wives don't love them anymore. They're confused, angry, telling themselves, 'I didn't do anything wrong.' But Robert, they don't get it. Women don't pull away because they stop loving. They pull away when they no longer feel safe to open up. Her words were like a small knife, not painful, but sharp enough to cut through the shell I'd built around myself. I thought of Linda, her silence every evening, the way she turned away when I tried to touch her shoulder, how she seemed to become a stranger in our own home. I took a deep breath, the cold air filling my lungs, and asked, "But I don't understand, Margot. I haven't done anything wrong. I came home on time. I don't argue with her. I still love her. So why is she so distant?" She looked at me, her gaze piercing through my excuses. "Men always say that," she replied, her voice lowering like a warning. "They think I didn't do anything wrong. But the problem isn't what you did wrong, it's what you stopped doing. Love isn't a fire that burns on its own, Robert. It's like a campfire. You have to add wood, stir it every day, or it'll turn to ash." I sat still, letting her words sink in. I thought about the past months, no, years, when I stopped telling Linda she was beautiful, when I only hugged her on special occasions like birthdays or Christmas. I tried to recall the last time she reached for my hand and realized I couldn't. "So it's my fault?" I asked, my voice catching. Margot shook her head, sipping her tea, steam rising in the cold air. "Not fault," she said. "Habit. You forgot how to make her feel special. Do you still compliment her?" "Not much," I admitted, shame creeping in. "Do you touch her when you don't want something?" I don't remember." She looked at me, her gaze both gentle and firm. "A woman's love doesn't die, Robert. It shrinks to protect itself. When she no longer feels chosen, she locks her heart away, not out of anger, but out of fear." Her words were like a light shining into my darkness. I wanted to ask more, to learn how to unlock Linda's heart, but Margot raised her hand, signaling patience. "Tomorrow," she said, "I'll tell you 3 small things to start again, not with empty words, but with your heart. Come back if you really want to change." I woke up earlier than usual that morning. When Milwaukee's sky was still misty, tiny droplets clinging to the window like sparkling gems. My heart was heavy, but also flickered with a hope I hadn't felt in ages. Margot's words from the night before echoed in my mind, that Linda's love hadn't died, it had only retreated to protect itself, and that I could change things if I was willing. I brewed coffee as usual, but this time, I didn't just make it for myself. I poured a cup for Linda, set it on the kitchen table with a small cookie she liked, and headed to the bus stop. I needed to hear what Margot had to say, needed a path to find the woman I loved. When I reached Prospect Avenue, Margot was there, her wooden broom leaning against the bench, her hands cradling her thermos as if for warmth. The maple leaves fell silently around her, carpeting the sidewalk in red and gold, and the faint sunlight through the branches lit her face, a face etched with time's wrinkles but glowing with a wondrous vitality. She looked at me, nodded slightly as if she'd known I'd come, and gestured for me to sit. "Are you ready, Robert?" she asked, her raspy voice warm like an autumn breeze over a field. I nodded, my heart beating faster, like a student awaiting life's most important lesson. "Love doesn't need grand gestures," Margot began, her eyes gazing far off as if recalling days gone by. "Men often think they have to buy a new ring, take their wife on a trip, or do something spectacular to win her heart back. But I'm telling you, women don't need that. They need to feel chosen. Every day, through the small things you do from your heart." She paused, sipped her tea, steam rising in the cold air, then held up 3 thin fingers as if counting steps. "Here are 3 things you need to do to start again. First," she said, "touch her without wanting anything but connection." I frowned, a bit confused, and she smiled softly, a smile both understanding and playful. "Men often touch when they want something more, a hug leading to the bedroom, a handhold with bigger intentions. But women feel the difference, Robert. Try placing your hand on her shoulder when she's at the sink, hugging her from behind while she's cooking, or kissing her hair just because you want to. Those touches ask for nothing. They say, 'I'm here for you, because I love you.'" I pictured it. Linda in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup, and me stepping up, wrapping my arms around her, feeling the warmth of her back through her sweater. I realized how long it had been since I'd done that, not for any reason, just to feel her. Second, she continued, her voice deepening like a resonant note. Say things that make her feel chosen every day. She looked at me, her gaze sharp to ensure I understood. Don't just say, I love you. Say, I love your patience, how you always wait for me even when I'm late, or I love how you fold napkins. It warms my heart. A woman doesn't just want to hear love. She wants to know you see the little things about her, things no one else notices. I thought of Linda, how she always folded my clothes neatly, though I never noticed, how she quietly read by the fireplace every evening. I could say something, couldn't I? Something simple, but enough to let her know I still saw her. And third, Margot said, her voice slowing as if drawing me into a pause. Ask her about things she's never shared, and listen with your heart. She picked up a dry leaf from the bench, twirling it between her fingers, then looked at me. Ask her, have you ever felt lonely in this house? Or is there something you've always wanted to try but never did? Then be quiet and let her speak. Don't fix, don't interrupt, just listen. When she feels heard, her heart will open little by little. My throat tightened. I remembered the times Linda looked at me, her eyes tinged with sadness, but I'd only nodded absently and turned away. When was the last time I truly listened to her? I couldn't recall. Margot placed her hand on mine, her hand cold yet strangely warm. These three things aren't hard, Robert, she said, her voice full of hope. But they need your heart, not your wallet, not your strength, but your true presence. Start today, and you'll see her respond, not right away, but slowly, like a campfire rekindled from ashes. I nodded, feeling as if I'd been given a map to find my way home, not the two-story house in the suburbs, but Linda's heart. As I stood to leave, Margot looked at me, her eyes glinting with something profound. Tomorrow, she said, I'll tell you the final lesson about true intimacy, the kind that doesn't come from the bedroom, but from the heart. Come back if you want to know. I smiled, my heart lighter, and knew I'd return for Linda, for myself, and for the fire I wanted to rekindle. The last day I met Margot, Milwaukee's sky was draped in pale gray clouds, the wind blowing harder, sweeping the final maple leaves along Prospect Avenue. I arrived at the bus stop early, my heart carrying a mix of eagerness and nervousness. Over the past 3 days, I tried following her advice. Gentle touches on Linda's shoulder as she stood at the sink. Small words like, I love how you care for the garden. It makes me feel at peace. And once I asked, have you ever felt lonely in our home? Linda hesitated, her eyes flickering, then said, sometimes, Robert. I didn't reply, just held her, and for the first time in years, I felt her lean into me, if only slightly. Margot was there, her wooden broom leaning against the bench, her hands cradling her now cool thermos. She looked at me, her smile fading on her wrinkled face, but her eyes still shone like an unquenchable flame. You've started, haven't you? She asked, her raspy voice gentle. I nodded, sitting down, feeling like a traveler who'd found light after a long journey in the dark. I see her changing, I said, but I'm still afraid it's not enough, that I've let things go too far. Margot set her thermos down, her trembling hands clasping together, and looked out where the leaves swirled in the wind. I've swept 1,000 streets in my life, she said, her voice slow like a sad melody. But one thing I've never swept away is love forgotten too long. You think it's gone, but I'm telling you, Robert, it's still there, under the ashes, waiting for you to breathe it back to life. She turned to me, her gaze piercing my heart. My final lesson is this. Intimacy doesn't come from the bedroom, it comes from the heart. When she feels you're truly there, not just with your body, but with your soul, she'll come to you, not because you ask, but because she wants to. Her words were like a breeze through my heart, scattering the last doubts. I thought of Linda, of the nights we held each other under the moonlight, of the days I thought just being together was enough. But Margot was right. I'd stopped being present, stopped making her feel chosen, and the intimacy between us didn't fade because of time, but because I'd forgotten to nurture it. You're lucky, Robert, she continued, her voice full of hope. She's still there, still waiting for you. No big gifts, No grand promises, just show her you see her every day with your presence. As I stood to leave, Margot took my hand, her hand cold yet strangely warm. Go home, she said, and don't stop. Love doesn't fade with time, it fades when we stop tending it. I nodded, feeling as if I'd been given a priceless gift, not gold or silver, but awakening. As I walked away, the cold wind brushing my face, I looked back at Margot one last time. She stood there, small against the wind, broom in hand, like a lighthouse in the sea of life. That night, I came home to find Linda by the fireplace, a book in her hands. I said nothing, just sat beside her, placed my hand on hers, and asked, "Do you want to tell me something?" She looked at me, her eyes softening, and for the first time in years, she smiled, a small smile, but enough to spark a fire in me. I knew this journey wasn't over, but it had begun anew, and I wouldn't let it die again.